Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of World of Darkness News. In a very, very big week, especially for Vampire the Masquerade Rivals developers, as they are running their Kickstarter campaign, about which we're going to talk about more today. It's been a really huge success so far, and I'm very happy that I was able to not only cover a little bit more of that game in the past episodes, but also give it a big highlight today with the upcoming interview. But before we get to that, let's talk about which topics we're going to cover today. And yet again, we have many. I'm very happy I'm doing this show, guys, because if I didn't, I don't know if I would be even catching up to all of the things we are doing, because there's so much stuff happening all the time. And starting with the Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game, interviewed the developers of that game, which is not only getting a really good success on Kickstarter, but also the first previews were a big success during the Gen Con online. People were able to play this game and see it on Tabletopia, and yeah, people so far really enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot. I played it twice already, and I'm very happy about that. And yeah, right after we finish with the card game news, we're going to jump to the comics. Vampire the Masquerade comics from Vault are out. The first issue is called Winter Thief, and we're going to dwell a little bit deeper into that after the interview. And then we're going to talk about two Dev Diaries, the first one from Vampire the Masquerade Swansong developers, and the second from Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest. It's also something I'm very happy about, that after I think a very good example that Bloodlines 2 developers are setting, more of our developers are joining the train of Dev Diaries, which are giving you a little bit more of a glimpse behind the scenes on development of these games. We're going to talk about all of these today, but first of all, we're going to start with the interview. Today, there's going to be an expanded window because we're going to have not one, but two guests. So let me very quickly jump into the call and see if they're waiting for us.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi there.
I have just shown you on the stream to all of the people watching us and to people who will be watching us on YouTube as well. Welcome from the World of Darkness team and our community.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's start from the beginning. We are today hosting Sarah Erickson and Matt Hyra from Renegades Game Studios, and I would like to start and kickstart this interview by asking you about your role on development of Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. Matt, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm the lead designer of the Rivals expandable card game.
And what about you,
And
Sarah?
I am the director of sales and marketing. So I've been working on the organized play and on the Kickstarter that we've been running.
That's awesome. And by the way, congratulations on your Kickstarter success. I think you are already at 70K out of the 10K goal, and with 14 days to go, which is amazing. And I really hope that it's going to just race up to the sky from now on. So let's start with a simple question. What exactly is Vampire the Masquerade Rivals for people who have not heard about it yet?
Go for it, Matt.
All right. I'll do some marketing. Sure. So Rivals is a 2 to 4 player expandable card game set in the world of darkness that we know and love. So as a game called Rivals, you can expect that you will have a rival in the game. If it's 2 player, it's simply the person across the table from you. If it's 4 player, we have tokens so that you get assigned a different rival. And your goal of the game is to knock out your rival or score 13 agenda. And everyone has their own unique, their own agenda card that gives them a unique way to score agenda. So it's there's a little bit of asymmetrical play there, but you're going to recruit vampires. You're going to attack your foes, especially your rival. You're going to interact with the city deck. We start the game. The game starts in San Francisco. There's things to interact with in the city deck, like mortals, some special affairs division, part of the Second Inquisition. And there's also events. And there's titles, there's schemes, there's conspiracies, there's a whole bunch of things to do and a whole lot of ways to win. So very interactive game.
Sounds great. And I really want to ask a little bit of a more tricky question to you, Matt. You said there are various different ways to score agenda in the game. And I already know some of these ways, but which one would be one of your favorites?
I think my favorite is probably some of the schemes actually can earn you agenda. Sometimes schemes are beneficial to all players, and when someone plays a scheme, they're going to start an influence conflict. And that allows players to use their political sway. So influence is a measure of a vampire's or a faction's political sway. And you can use the influence on some of your characters to influence, to exert influence towards passing, to have the scheme resolve or not resolve. So it's a yes or no. Should we do I want to exert influence to help this scheme or to hurt this scheme? But some schemes are mutually beneficial for all players. Some are completely greedy. And in fact, there's one called Greed that says, influence conflict, should I gain two agenda? Well, you can rest assured the other players are immediately going to call out, no, we're voting against that. But if I can muster up enough influence, I might be able to score some quick agenda that way. So I like that kind of me against everybody else to see if I have the resolve to do it. But there's other ways. You can defeat the Second Inquisition soldiers. You can attack and either feed upon or retain some mortals, and the citizen mortals actually will score you some agenda. So will the Second Inquisition. And then also every time you knock out, send one of your rivals to torpor or burn them, you actually also score agenda. So that is a way that is good for the aggressive decks, especially.
Yeah, and about the schemes that you mentioned in the beginning, for people who want to see that in action, I personally used the scheme against B. Dave Walters in our pre-recorded little play session that we had, which is available to watch on the Kickstarter page. So
yeah, you had help. You had help. You got other people to work with you and against him. So.
We really hated that goddamn Ventru. But let's go back to the general description of the game, because we're talking a lot about the game being expandable, and some people may not know exactly what expandable means in that particular case. And I would like to additionally throw in that question a question about the frequency of the expansions and what are you planning when it comes to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, it is expandable. You start out with these pre-built decks that you get in the core set that is on Kickstarter right now. But even within that core set, there's 63 cards that you can use to modify those decks or to just start over and build decks from scratch. And it gives you a lot of options. For example, there's 4 havens in the pre-built core decks, but you have 4 additional havens and 4 additional agendas that you can use to switch back and forth and really spice up and change the way that your deck plays. So each one of those expansions that comes out later on is going to have more cards that you can use to build brand new decks. And those are going to come out regularly. I don't want to say exactly how often, but we do want you to have enough content coming out regularly enough that it doesn't get stale. So we're looking at several per year is our goal, and spread out pretty evenly. But we'll also have new clans, new city card decks, new havens, new agendas, all of the cards that are in the core set. You can expect to see more of those types of cards in future expansions, but not necessarily all of those different types of cards in every different expansion, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and of course, with a lot of the customization of the particular decks, like we can, for example, swap the discipline cards in between different clans, right? We could make technically a Bruja Presence deck or some different decks that I was actually planning around to make. There must be a challenge with balancing it all. So, Matt, what was the biggest challenge when it comes to developing this game and making sure it's fair on all fronts?
Right. yeah, like you said, you can your coterie, your faction deck can be made up of whatever vampires you want. And um to make it fair, well, one thing we have in the game is some of the cards are clan specific. So only you would have to control a member of that clan to use the card. Like Sucker Punch is a Brujah card that lets you get around a blocker in combat. So you can do mixed coteries, which can be very powerful using some different elements from each of the clans, but those clan only cards are pretty good. And if you want to use a card like Sucker Punch, you have to control a Brujah. If you control a Brujah, any of your characters can use it, but if that Brujah goes to torpor, that card's going to be stuck in your hand for a little while until that character comes out of torpor. So in that way, it's difficult to just cherry pick the very, very best card from every clan and throw them all into one deck. It could happen if you have really planned for keeping your characters alive, but in general, there could be times where you're like, oh man, I don't control the Malkavian right now. I can't use this awesome defense card. So in that way, I there's some balance to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of playtesting, I know that the developers behind Rivals are also card game geeks, and you guys are playing a lot of the different card games. I need to ask, what other card games are you playing, and whether there were any inspirations that you took from different games to before developing Rivals?
Sarah, do you want to?
Well, so I have taken a lot of the inspiration for looking at the organized play program from Magic the Gathering, World of Warcraft, Versus, and even a lot of the LCG things like Legend of the Five Rings, the Star Wars dice game. There's so many really good card games out there that they each have had different ideas about organized play. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from lots of those. And honestly, I've just played a ton of card games because I really like them. But as far as development goes, Matt, you have a pretty incredible resume as far as games that you've worked on and developed, but also games you play.
True. Yeah. I mean, I started off with Magic. Obviously, I grew up in Seattle, so how could I avoid it? I was on the Pro Tour. I was actually a playtester for Jihad way back in the day, so that
Oh,
dates me a little bit. Yeah. So, and then of course I've worked on, like Sarah said, like Versus System, World of Warcraft trading card game. I was around at Wizards of the Coast for Magic and Pokemon. Um, yeah, so I've made various direct inspiration, like some of the more current games like Netrunner, things like that. Agenda was inspired by Netrunner, I guess I could say. And that's a big part of the game is Agenda. So yeah, I would just say that it's a culmination of a lot of things, but we've got our own twist on everything too, because I don't know too many ultra competitive games that have a city deck with randomized events and whatnot in it. So that distinguishes us a little. Because we're based on a role-playing game, we wanted to have some like things happening that could happen in a role-playing game type of thing. So there's inspiration everywhere, not just in card games.
yes, and as a lot of our community members watching us right now are tabletop players, I personally did feel when I was playing Rivals that this could be a very interesting experience for people who approach it in a role-playing way. Did you think about it when developing the game, and how does playing different clans feel like?
Well, certainly, yeah, each clan has a typical look and feel that's based on their attributes and their disciplines for sure. And this core set that's available on Kickstarter has kind of the typical feel. Like the Brujah, they're kind of the punks and warrior poets of the classic Brujah theory, and so they play a little more aggressively. The Malkavians in the core set are really into conspiracies and doing crazy stuff, which is kind of the typical thing you'd expect from them. But that is not going to be the case always going forward. You know, the Malkavians will do other things eventually when we revisit them in the future. So we are using in that core set, because we have a limited card pool right now, we can't venture too far away from the classic depiction of some of these clans. But as we move on, you will see a little more nuance to each clan. And certainly in the mixing of clans, you're able to tell your own story. And because a faction deck is really that, like even in vampire role playing, it's rare that you'll have a group of 4 players all playing Ventru, right? It's
Yes.
just more interesting if everyone's playing a different clan, so that you get a little bit of variety of goals and demeanor, right? So hopefully that answered the question a little bit.
It did. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And going back to the idea of organized play, I'm very much interested on how is that going to look for Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. As a game itself, it seems as a perfect title for future tournaments, events, streams, and various different competitive environments that you guys could create with that. Do you have any ongoing and plans happening soon when it comes to organized play, considering the global situation with the pandemic?
Yeah, it's absolutely a good question right now because it's something we're all dealing with. So, just to think about the timeline, our game is on Kickstarter right now, and we expect to deliver it to people in December, which means in December you'll go open up that box and you can certainly play with people that you're close to, people in your household, and we'll be giving you things that are fun to do, even with a small group of people. One of the things I'm really particularly excited about are achievements. And those will be things that you can do whether you're in a store or at your house or just by yourself. There will be things that you can work towards within the game, and then you can post on our website about that, vampirerivals.com, and get little digital bonuses for that. So we have things that you'll be able to do right away while you're learning how to play. And then as we go further into 2021, we expect conditions to be a little bit better for people to be able to get together and actually play in larger events. So we do have bigger events planned starting sort of in the middle to end of 2021. And we know that people by then will have had enough time to really learn the game, build lots of great decks, and have a little bit of fun with that with their local groups. Another thing along those lines is that anybody can be a host. So if you don't have a local store or your local store is not able to host organized play at this time, you can go to our website, vampirerivals.com. You can sign up for our forums. And when we're ready to launch it, you'll also be able to register as a host, which means you'll be able to officially sanction events. You'll be able to put in all the player info, and there isn't going to be a minimum number of players. Like if you just have 2 people playing in your house against each other, that's totally fine. You can still report that as an official event. And we really want to encourage people to stay safe while still looking forward to those really big events that we plan on having in 2021.
That's great. It must be very challenging times for board game and card game developers, but it seems like you guys are nailing this with the Kickstarter campaign, with the plans for the organized play, with the achievement plan. That sounds really awesome. So I would like to ask, once we receive this game in December, I'm thinking Christmas time, people gathering together before the new year and spending time at their tables and playing it. I'm wondering, how is it going to be different, whether we're going to play the game in 4 people or in 2?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So you do have those specific rivals that you're assigned at the beginning of the game, but the rest of the game still works exactly the same. So whether you're playing with 2, 3, or 4 players, there's still so much to interact with. There's still the city deck in the middle. You still have somebody that you're gunning for. It just happens to be that they're gunning for you as well. So there really is the same amount of interaction. You're just interacting with a slightly different person. Does that seem like that fits with you, Matt? Oh, and one other thing I actually did want to mention with that. So we're going to be doing Vampire Wednesdays, which is our live stream every Wednesday. So if you're only playing with a couple people, maybe you just have one other person you're playing with, you can still be part of our larger community as well. You just join us on Wednesdays, and we'll be playing live on camera on Wednesdays, and you can join us, and we'll be doing things like global events that change the state of the game for everybody playing all at the same time on Wednesdays. So it should be really fun. And even if you're playing with a smaller group, you can still be part of something bigger. But Matt, any other comments about 2 to 4 players?
As regards OP, I think, yeah, I mean, we will have events that that are various player counts. You know, we'll sometimes do 2-player OP and sometimes 4-player. And in Rivals, as soon as a player is knocked out, the game is over. So there's no sitting around waiting for your friends to finish up while you're crying in your soup. So yeah. So I think, yeah, for 2 to 4, there will be differences in OP. We'll decide for each event essentially.
Okay, and I'm actually wondering because, of course, I feel like the game is going to be a little bit more on the offensive when it comes to the strategy, when it comes to only 2 players, and a little bit more drawn back when we're playing with the 4 players, because we don't want to drag that much attention to our own actions by attacking outright. I'm really wondering how's it going to work. And of course, just to make sure for the chat, as people are asking, the game among 3 players is also possible, right?
Yeah, 3 players is totally possible and still good.
Absolutely. Great. So let's jump into another question when it comes to the availability of the game. I was wondering, how do you plan to organize the availability of the physical game worldwide and the languages that the game will be available in?
Yeah, so we're actually launching it in English and in French on our Kickstarter right now. So if you would like it in the French language, we're working with our partners over in France, Renegade France, and they've already translated the rulebook. They're actually just working on the final details of that now. And on our Kickstarter page, you can see the rulebook in its current state, which is not quite final, but close, for both English and French. As far as how to get future expansions, obviously right now you can order everything that's available on our Kickstarter page. In the future, we will have the core set available in retail stores, and also the sleeves will be available for retailers to order. But there's a lot of Kickstarter exclusives on our Kickstarter page, things like playmats, upgraded token sets, dice bags, and other alternate promo cards, and also things we haven't even announced yet in our stretch goals. So there will be some stuff that is a little bit more difficult to get later on, which is why it's great to back the Kickstarter now. But anything that's gameplay, anything that you would maybe be looking for if you were trying to build the best tournament deck, all of those things will be available either through retailers or through future pre-order campaigns. We'll make it super easy for international backers to get stuff in the future, and then also through our web store. So we want to make it absolutely as easy as possible for anyone who's backed our Kickstarter campaign to continue purchasing any future expansions, because we don't want you to be left out.
That's perfect. Thank you very much for this answer. And going back to the digital, I was wondering whether you could share, I've heard already about the Twitch channel from this stream, of course, but all the other places in which players can discuss Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, watch it being played, and get accustomed to it before they get their copy in December.
Yeah, so the best place to go right now is vampirerivals.com. And if you scroll down on that page, you're going to see a link to our forums where people are chatting about deck strategy, where that's going to be where we go to look for all sorts of new ideas for cards and announcements, big news things. And it'll also be part of the same site where we have a card database, we have registration for events, lookups for local stores and local events that are happening. So make sure you go and register there. Also, there will be a link to our Discord where we have tons of people on our Discord right now chatting up about the game, asking great questions. We have our Renegade staff is in there all the time answering questions. So that's a really good place to find us as well.
Perfect. All right, I think we got a lot of information about Vampire the Masquerade Rivals and the Kickstarter campaign, which is, I think right now, am I correct to say that you have reached almost all of your extended goals, or are we not there yet?
No.
We have
Oh, many
more.
things.
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. So, what are we actually looking for when it comes to those that weren't reached yet? So maybe our audience may help us reach you, may help you with reaching that.
Yeah, so we did hit our funding goal in the first 20 minutes, which is great. But we have a lot of extra stuff to add to our Methuselah level, which is our all-in tier. And if you back that level every day, you're just going to be getting more and more stuff. So right now, with the funding level that we're at, you're going to get a Malkavian playmat, a dice bag. I'm not sure which one. You get a dice bag.
The Toreador dice bag, the Ventru
Toreador.
alternate art of Randolph Mars. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we have already also shown that we're going to be hitting our dividers. The dividers are really helpful for organizing that space within the actual box. The core set box is designed to be able to host all of your cards for a little while until we get too many expansions. But for right now, it's got a lot of space in there, but you don't want to just throw all of your cards in there. We've got dividers that'll help you separate those decks and keep everything nicely organized. But we have so many more things that we're excited to share with people. We just need more people to back, more people to help us increase those funding goals. And each time we hit one of our new goals, we'll announce a new goal that we're working towards.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it all. I am very much eager to show more of Vampire the Masquerade Rivals here on stream. And just to let everyone know, I am slowly poking my team so we play this game one day on the stream and I can grab Jason and other folks from our brand team and show this game to everyone. I think it would be absolutely amazing. And I really hope to play with you in the future as well.
That would be fun.
I wanna watch that game.
Yes.
I'll even help out. I'll be the judge.
I am very much eager to organize that. So let's plan it out then. Thank you so much for joining today and good luck with the rest of your Kickstarter campaign. 14 days to go, guys. Let's go to Kickstarter and back Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Vampire the Masquerade comics from Vault have their first release today, with the first issue called Winter's Thief being out, available in both digital form and the physical form from your local comic book stores. The way to get it, they're plentiful. You can either get it from the Drive-Thru Comics, from the Comixology, from Amazon. There are a lot of digital stores which are selling the copies either in the PDF form or in the Kindle form, and also you can get the physical copy in your local comic book stores. Just check out with them whether they have it available. I really recommend to check out various collectible covers that the first issue and the second and the third issue will come with. I'm actually showing some of these additional covers here in the slideshow. They are just so gorgeous. They thought it's just a given that I have to show them to you here. This is the main basic cover for the first issue, but there are also the alternate covers. If you want to know exactly how many and how they look like, please check out the coverage by CBR.com. CBR is doing a lot of the coverages of Vampire the Masquerade Vault comics, including the exclusive in-depth coverage of the first issue with a lot of the pages from the first comic, so you can see whether this is up your alley. And you can actually dwell a little bit deeper into the first part of the first issue story, the Camarilla one. So you can check that out on CBR.com. Just go there and search for Vampire the Masquerade. You will find a lot of the Vault Comics material in there. And of course, to give you a very quick glimpse on what the comic is about, we did have Vault Comics authors Tini and Blake Howard as guests on one of the previous World of Darkness news shows in here. So if you will go to our YouTube, you can actually find the interview where they are sharing a lot of the details about their story. The story in the first issue is separated in two parts. The front one is the Camarilla story, and the back one is the Anarch story, and they are both intermingling with each other at particular points, which is an interesting dualism of where the story is going. This is very much of a twin story, not only because of this this separation, but also because of the setting in the twin cities. And I personally really like how in depth the character design goes in this story, which not only is shown in the story itself and in the wonderful art, which is very old school in some kind of a way, but in a good way for Winter's Thief, but also in the additional TTRPG material, which is added to the comic. Each comic issue is going to have some TTRPG material. The first one has the character sheets, which are going in depth into what kind of characters the story actually portrays. And these characters can be used in your campaigns. You can make up a story in which one of these characters appear, and you have the materials ready to go. I actually want to quote one wonderful quote from the reviews I was reading today, because the reviews for Vault Comics are just great. So this is one of the quotes from the blacknerdsproblems.com, a really awesome Black community website, which is sharing a lot of the information not only about the comic books, but also a lot of the geek culture. And the quote is saying, "Vampire the Masquerade Vault Comics are a fascinating introduction to the world. They provide a great jumping off point into the universe as they stage various conflicts while maintaining a crisp urban fantasy veneer. Yet what truly sets it apart for me is that the character sheets at the end also make the comic a great supplement for any game master and fan who wants more tools to work with. That's kind of a dream for a project like this. Well written, well drawn, and a font of inspiration to tell other stories." This is just so nice, and I totally feel the same way when I am checking out the TRPG materials added, because I just really want to add these characters to my role-playing chronicles and my campaigns, and I want to utilize them in the story. And you can do the same if you are picking up the comics and checking out the added material. So yeah, that's Vampire the Masquerade Vault Comics. People are discussing these a lot on our Discord server, so you can check it out if you want to know more. There's a lot of people who already got their issues. They are even posting pictures with their beautiful physical issues on the Discord. So thank you so much for these guys, and post more, post your opinions, what you think about this one. And Tini and Blake are actually a part of our Discord, so they are reading your comments. Blake is very active in there. So if you have any feedback, just share it with them. If you have any dreams about the upcoming TTRPG material in the next issues, share it with them as well, because they are going to read that and maybe incorporate that in the future issues. So the next information that we got from the Vampire the Masquerade Swansong developers is concerning the Dev Diary. Swansong developers started publishing Dev Diaries last week, with the first one published on Facebook, so you can check it out on their official Facebook fan page. And the very first Dev Diary that they've posted is going in depth into who the team consists of and what kind of a history the studio has, how the work in Big Bad Wolf is looking like. And they were actually talking a lot about the history of how they developed the council and how this emerged into now developing a Vampire the Masquerade game. If you don't know the council, it's a really interesting game, and I was always wondering how it exactly happened, what was the pitch idea. And it seems that Cyanide, the studio, gave the developers who wanted to develop a narrative-driven RPG a free rein, and that's how they came up with the council as an idea. It was a tale of a political intrigue where you interact with the famous historical figures like George Washington, and you are involved in this political intricacies of the world of the historic leaders in a remote island in the middle of nowhere. It's a very interesting concept of how to develop a narrative RPG using way more of a diplomatic skills than combat skills. It's way more of a game of diplomacy and sharp tongue than it is a game of a sword or a gun. But it is still a narrative RPG in 3D, so it's not a visual novel nor a narrative game. And they basically jumped under in the deep water with the council. That was the their very first try at trying something new, a new kind of a narrative RPG. And they do admit in that diary that they made a lot of mistakes. I'm not really sure if that's a lot, considering that the game had a very good reviews on Steam and in different outlets. Maybe it's because the game wasn't as popular and it's not as known as I hope Vampire the Masquerade Swansong will be. But they did build a strong team dedicated to the creation of narrative RPGs through that development. And that's how Vampire the Masquerade Swansong's foundation happened. They wanted to make a game set in the Vampire the Masquerade world where social interactions make up a core part of that game. And that's going to be developed more in Swansong, where you are controlling 3 different vampires, a Ventrue, a Toreador, and a Malkavian, and they are interacting with the world around them in different ways, with a different mindset on the Camarilla and on the events happening in the game. And I assume that political intrigue is going to be a big point and big feature of this game. It was a perfect match for the style and gameplay for Vampire the Masquerade. After they developed console, they decided that Swansong is going to be a very big leap forward based on the same foundations. They're also a very modest team. I didn't actually know that, but they share that in the diary. They consist of only 30 people, and this means that they have a very tight-knit group and they are able to communicate between one another without the need of any intermediaries. So there's a lot of the cooperation within the team, and it does usually mean, of course, a very short walks in the office, but right now they are all working from home. So just like Heartsed Labs, developers of Bloodlines 2, because of the global pandemic, the development is moved to their home offices, but they are trying to work their best around it, which also includes playing Vampire the Masquerade Chronicles online, because that's how they spend their afternoons. And dev diaries are going to happen more commonly for Swansong. The very first one focuses again on the team, on the whole path from the council to Swansong and how did it happen. There's a lot of little details in that diary which might be interesting to you if you are interested more in the development of this game, but we can expect more of them. And I'm very happy about that. We are also going to show you Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest dev diary during this new stream. But before I do so, I just want to say that I really enjoy the fact that more and more developers are sharing the dev diaries, and it's happening a little bit more of as a common thing for the development teams, because of course you can observe that through Bloodlines as a very good lens, which is a little bit more of a condensed campaign, because of course Bloodlines 2 has only been announced last year, so this is just, you know, a little bit over a year of content released to the public. But of course any content like gameplay videos, like trailers, cinematic trailers, oh my god, and more, it's very expensive and costly and time consuming to make. So if you are feeling that time with that content, you are of course only going to have enough of that before you actually have to go through the silent periods where you develop the game. And that's the place where the dev diaries really come in handy, because they are cheaper to produce than those video assets and those bigger assets that you are sharing to the public as a game developer, but they also share a lot more, let's say, meat of the game, you know, very much inner workings of how the team works, how the development works. I think they also set up the expectations very well. So you are, for example, seeing, okay, Swansong had a really amazing high-class cinematic trailer, but it's a game made by 30 people. It's going to be a AA game, and it's going to be based a very similar game in the gameplay than the council, and developed over that. So they plan to aim for the council but better. So I feel like dev diaries are really preparing us well for what to expect from the game and how the work in the development studios work. And I'm very glad that these are being shared with the public, because I have more content to share with you from the development teams, and I can get a little bit deeper into the focus of all of these games which are on the line for World of Darkness right now. But before we'll go too deep into the topic of why dev diaries are awesome, my opinion, I really hope you share that, I'm going to share, of course, more of the dev diaries in the future with you. And right now, let's jump to another type of a dev diary, the video one with werewolf people. Let's see that.
Mostly because we got a chance to do it. We were given the rights to make a game in this IP, but we've been interested in doing this mostly because we have been fans of World of Darkness for over 20 years. An opportunity to create a game that lets us further evolve our design approach that we developed with our previous games, and now we can apply a better version of it in a setting that we like very much, is an opportunity you can't pass up. Besides, like our writer Marta said, it's the dream job of her 16-year-old self. That's about right. I remember playing Werewolf back in the day and thinking, damn, I'd like to create a game like this. And now I hope that you're going to like what we make because we're really hyped ourselves.
I love these. I absolutely love these, and I'm very happy that Heart of the Forest developers are doing these. In general, I really recommend the social media of course, Bloodlines 2 as well. Fiona, you are doing, not only Fiona, actually, but you guys are doing an amazing job on the social media for Bloodlines 2. They really recommend Swansong, Earthblood, and Heart of the Forest as the places to go to check out not only the updates for these games, but also a lot of the banter in between the accounts, vampires versus werewolves, and a lot of the werewolf and vampire stories. They are showing a lot of the cool stuff in there, and I love reading those, you know, like every breakfast I'm just checking out what new have they written on their social media just so I can have some enjoyment in the morning. We are planning a lot of fun things, and I really hope I am going to deliver that from Stockholm, Sweden, in which I will be starting from next week. Cross your fingers, guys, because that's going to be a big move, and soon I will be joining you from Paradox offices. Thank you so much, guys, and see you probably not next week. I don't promise, but in 2 weeks for sure. Thank you and goodbye.